There is something uniquely contemptible about fat, morally lazy creators like Tizzyent because they have managed to transform one of humanity's ugliest instincts into a full-time profession while convincing themselves they are morally enlightened for doing it. They are not activists. They are not guardians of justice. They are not brave truth-tellers confronting evil. They are digital ambulance chasers for outrage, prowling the internet for moments of human failure they can package into profitable morality theater for audiences addicted to public humiliation. Their entire ecosystem depends on reducing complicated human beings into disposable villains so viewers can experience the cheap emotional narcotic of collective hatred without ever having to wrestle with nuance, proportionality, or self-awareness. And the latest video is the perfect example of the sickness. A minor traffic accident occurs. Somebody loses their temper. He behaves aggressively. He says racist garbage during a heated emotional confrontation. Ugly? Sure. Embarrassing? Absolutely. But then the real predators arrive. The phones come out. The recording begins. Not because anyone is genuinely trying to improve the situation, but because modern social media has conditioned people to see every public conflict as potential content. Every argument is now a possible viral clip. Every emotional breakdown is a future engagement spike. Every stranger having a terrible moment is a possible career opportunity for some self-righteous internet ghoul waiting to narrate the footage afterward with smug moral commentary layered over dramatic zoom-ins and slow-motion replay. And that is exactly what Tizzyent does. Over and over and over again, he takes people at their worst moments and turns them into digital effigies for mass public burning. Then he pretends he is merely raising awareness while openly inviting his audience into the hunt with phrases like, "Who is this guy?" That line alone exposes the entire fraud. Nobody says that innocently anymore. Everybody understands what follows. The audience starts searching. Faces get identified. Employers get contacted. Families get dragged into it. Social media accounts get flooded. Harassment campaigns begin. Complete strangers begin treating some random person they saw in a 90-second clip as though they are the physical embodiment of evil itself. And the creator sits comfortably behind the scenes, bathing in clicks, followers, engagement, sponsorships, and ad revenue, while pretending the mob formed spontaneously through divine moral necessity. It is one of the most cowardly forms of manipulation imaginable because it allows people like Tizzyent to weaponize millions of viewers without technically issuing direct orders. He understands exactly how internet mobs function. He knows exactly what his audience will do. He knows what happens when you frame someone as a dangerous social contaminant in front of an emotionally reactive audience trained to interpret harassment as activism. Yet he keeps doing it because this entire ecosystem rewards cruelty so long as the cruelty is packaged as righteousness. And the truly revolting part is the smugness, the unbearable, oily self-satisfaction radiating from these people. They carry themselves like moral philosophers descending from the heavens to educate society when in reality they are glorified gossip merchants with ring lights. They are professional hall monitors for a civilization already drowning in paranoia, tribalism, and social distrust. They contribute absolutely nothing healthy to public discourse. They inflame outrage, simplify complexity, escalate hostility, and monetize humiliation while presenting themselves as compassionate defenders of decency. But if you strip away the fake moral packaging, what are they really doing? They are turning ordinary, flawed human beings into entertainment products. That is the core truth underneath all of this. The target is not treated like a person anymore. They become content, a character, a villain archetype, a sacrificial object for the audience to emotionally consume together. The viewers are not encouraged to understand anything. They are encouraged to react, to judge, to hate, to participate, to feel the warm chemical rush of moral superiority while sitting safely behind screens fantasizing about punishment. And what makes this entire phenomenon so disgusting is how selectively human these creators allow people to remain. If someone the audience sympathizes with has an emotional breakdown, suddenly nuance matters. Trauma matters. Context matters. Stress matters. Mental health matters. Social pressure matters. People become compassionate psychologists overnight. But when the designated villain appears, all that complexity vanishes instantly. Suddenly, one moment becomes the definitive truth about the entire person forever. Their entire identity is collapsed into the ugliest possible interpretation because outrage culture depends on flattening human beings into simplistic moral cartoons. The guy in the video said racist shit during an angry confrontation after a car accident. That is bad behavior. Nobody reasonable disputes that. But the internet immediately jumps from "this behavior was ugly" to "this person must be permanently exposed, hunted down, socially destroyed, and transformed into a public warning symbol for millions of strangers." That leap is psychotic. It reflects a culture that has completely lost the ability to distinguish between condemnation and annihilation. Because here is the uncomfortable truth nobody in outrage influencer circles wants to admit. Human beings say horrible things during emotional explosions all the time. Anger is not a calm, ideological state. It is a biological stress response where people lash out irrationally, cruelly, and impulsively. That does not magically excuse bad behavior, but adults used to understand the difference between a sustained worldview and a temporary emotional detonation. Now, social media has trained people to interpret every outburst as a fully coherent political manifesto, revealing the deepest essence of the individual forever. And honestly, the people pretending otherwise are either lying or emotionally immature. Most human beings have said things during moments of rage, grief, panic, humiliation, intoxication, heartbreak, or stress that would look monstrous if selectively recorded and uploaded online. Road rage incidents, family screaming matches, workplace meltdowns, panic attacks, nervous breakdowns, cruel insults during divorces, harsh words spoken at funerals, emotional explosions during financial crises. Humanity is a psychologically unstable species held together by caffeine, trauma, hormones, sleep deprivation, economic pressure, and chronic overstimulation. The only reason many people feel morally superior watching these clips is because their own worst moments were not algorithmically distributed to millions of strangers. But people like Tizzyent thrive on this selective hypocrisy because their entire business model depends on maintaining the illusion that the audience is fundamentally better than the target. That emotional separation is what keeps viewers addicted. The audience must believe they are watching a different species entirely, rather than another flawed human organism having a terrible moment under stress. The moment viewers begin recognizing themselves in the target, the entire morality circus collapses. And that is why creators like him constantly escalate the framing. The target cannot simply be rude. They must become dangerous. They cannot simply lose control emotionally. They must represent systemic evil. Every incident must be inflated into a civilization-defining moral crisis because dramatic framing drives engagement and engagement drives revenue. That is the real engine underneath all of this. Money, clicks, views, followers, virality. People like Tizzyent have discovered that moral outrage is one of the most profitable resources on the internet. Anger spreads faster than nuance. Hatred generates stronger engagement than compassion. Public humiliation creates stronger emotional investment than forgiveness or restraint. So naturally, the platforms reward creators who constantly feed audiences fresh targets for communal destruction. And the audience participates enthusiastically because modern internet culture has psychologically trained people to confuse cruelty with justice whenever the victim is socially approved for destruction. That is the truly dangerous lesson embedded within all this content. The mob always believes itself righteous while it is tearing somebody apart. Historically, humans have always been disturbingly eager to participate in punishment rituals so long as enough social approval exists around the target. The technology changed, the instinct did not. What makes this even more pathetic is how performative the morality becomes. These creators constantly posture as compassionate defenders of decency while behaving like digital paparazzi circling car wrecks. They profit from conflict. They need conflict. Their careers literally depend on society remaining angry, divided, paranoid, emotionally reactive, and hungry for fresh villains every single day. If people suddenly became measured, forgiving, context-aware adults capable of proportional reasoning, this entire influencer ecosystem would collapse overnight because nobody would watch these outrage sermons anymore. And honestly, creators like Tizzyent are contributing to one of the worst psychological transformations happening in modern society: the normalization of mass civilian surveillance combined with public humiliation as entertainment. Phones are no longer just communication tools. They are social weapons. Every stranger is now a potential content source. Every disagreement carries the possibility of viral exposure. Every public emotional mistake risks becoming permanent, searchable identity branding attached to someone forever. Humanity evolved to survive small group reputational consequences, not global algorithmic judgment from millions of anonymous spectators operating with zero accountability or emotional restraint. The long-term societal effects of this are going to be catastrophic. People are becoming terrified of imperfection, terrified of emotional vulnerability, terrified of public mistakes, terrified of context collapse. Meanwhile, the internet simultaneously becomes more aggressive, more judgmental, more paranoid, and more psychologically hostile because outrage algorithms continuously reward the most emotionally extreme interpretations possible. And perhaps the most nauseating irony is that creators like Tizzyent almost certainly view themselves as compassionate people. That is what makes this whole phenomenon so sinister. They genuinely believe public humiliation is kindness because social media has completely corrupted people's understanding of morality. They mistake punishment for progress, exposure for wisdom, cruelty for accountability, mob participation for courage. But real moral maturity requires restraint. It requires proportionality. It requires recognizing that human beings are not reducible to isolated moments. It requires understanding that destroying someone's life over temporary emotional explosions rarely improves society in any meaningful way. It requires the humility to admit that if our own worst moments were recorded, selectively edited, narratively framed, and algorithmically amplified, many of us would look monstrous too. Yet none of that generates engagement. So instead, we get digital vultures like Tizzyent circling public conflict looking for fresh corpses to monetize emotionally. And honestly, the man in the video may have embarrassed himself during a moment of anger, but the people who build entire careers around ritualized public humiliation are revealing something much uglier about themselves. At least the angry driver exploded openly in the heat of a stressful moment. The outrage influencer class operates with cold calculation. Their cruelty is deliberate. Their manipulation is strategic. Their sanctimony is rehearsed. Their exploitation is systematic. They understand exactly how internet mobs behave, and they keep feeding them targets anyway because outrage is profitable. That is the real sickness here. Not just one angry idiot screaming after a car accident. An entire culture that has turned human imperfection into spectator sport for monetized moral narcissists who confuse public shaming with virtue while millions of emotionally hungry viewers cheer them on like Romans demanding another body in the arena. So in short, fuck Tizzyent.